Good evening and welcome to the Carnegie Town Hall. This meeting of the City Council will begin in a few moments. The City Council meets on the first, second, and third Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. and serves as the city's policymaking and legislative body. Each meeting is governed by Robert's Rule of Order unless those guidelines conflict with city ordinance or charter. City Council meetings offer an opportunity for citizens to speak directly to their elected representatives. Those in attendance are invited to address the Council during the public input segment at the beginning of the agenda. At that time, any issue that is not subject to formal action later in the agenda can be addressed. Testimony that concerns a resolution or an ordinance's second reading is only allowed when those specific agenda items are being addressed by the Council. When addressing the Council, citizens should speak directly into the microphones at the podium and state their names for the record after being recognized by the chair. To accommodate and respect all viewpoints, citizen comments are limited by ordinance to no more than 5 minutes each. Comments should be respectful and focused on providing new information that will benefit the Council's deliberative process. By city ordinance, all remarks must be addressed to the City Council as a body and not to any City Council member, including the mayor. The chair reserves the right to limit the number of speakers. City Council meetings are broadcast live on CityLink and online at siouxfalls.org. Information regarding the City Council, its committees, meetings, briefings, and members is available by visiting siouxfalls.org/council or by calling the Council office at 605-367-8085. Thank you for your interest in Sioux Falls City Government.
I call this meeting in order and welcome to our Wednesday, April 11th City Council meeting. And we are meeting on a Wednesday night due to the election last evening. May we have a roll call of our members, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Councilor Rolfing?
Here.
Selberg?
Here.
Starr?
Here.
Staley? Erickson?
Here.
Urbanbach?
Here.
Kiley?
Here.
Neitzert?
Present.
Huther?
And tonight it is our good fortune to have Pastor Tim Valentine here to lead us in our invocation. Pastor Valentine is with Celebrate Church, so if we would all please rise.
Father God, we just want to thank you so much, first and foremost, just for breath in our lungs today. Another day that we get to have a relationship with you through your Son. We want to thank you for that, God. And in light of the election that we just had last night, Father, we want to thank you that we live in a country where we have the ability to choose our leaders. But even more importantly, Father, we want to thank you for those that choose to be leaders, those that give of themselves, give of their families and their time to serve their communities. God, I want to thank you for each and every person here at this table, God, that give of so much to make this community better, God. We just pray that you continue to bless them and give them wisdom to them and every person who will be in these seats in the future, Father, and continue to keep our community safe and bless us, Father. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor Valentine, thank you very much. Well, this evening we have three very worthy causes and proclamations to read. So may I have Stacy Weller please come forward for our first proclamation. Stacy, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here this evening?
Okay, I am the director of Child's Voice under Sanford Medical Center, and we evaluate kids for suspected abuse and neglect. And this past year, just right here in Minnehaha County, we've served over 402 children. And last year alone, we served over 1,200 children in this area. So we're seeing a lot of kids. Sad.
It is very sad, but your position is very necessary, so thank you for your service. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas child abuse is a serious, significant issue in South Dakota. Whereas 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men are sexually abused before the age of 18. There were 403 children evaluated for child maltreatment right here in Minnehaha County. Whereas children are vital to our state's future success, prosperity, and quality of life, as well as being our most vulnerable assets. Whereas all children deserve to have the safe, stable, nurturing homes and communities they need to foster their healthy growth and development. Whereas child abuse and neglect is a community responsibility affecting both the current and future quality of life of a community. Whereas communities that provide parents with the social support, knowledge of parenting and child development, and concrete resources they need to cope with stress and nurture their children ensure all children grow to their full potential. Whereas effective child abuse prevention strategies succeed because of partnerships created among citizens, human service agencies, schools, faith communities, healthcare providers, civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. Now, therefore, I, Rick Kiley, Chairman of the Sioux Falls City Council, on behalf of Mayor Mike Huther, do hereby proclaim April 2018 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Sioux Falls and call upon all citizens, community agencies, faith groups, medical facilities, elected leaders, and businesses to increase their participation in our efforts to support families, thereby preventing child abuse and strengthening the communities in which we live. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much. May I have Angie Bakke please come forward? And I should say too, if you have other members of your group that you'd like to bring up, that is perfectly fine. Angie, will you tell us why you are here this evening?
Absolutely. My name is Angie Bakke. I'm the Chief Program Officer at MB, and we are part of the Sioux Empire Child Care Alliance. And child care is an important thing to all of us here in the Sioux Empire, and it's certainly a driver of workforce. And so we want to recognize the men and women who take care of our kids every single day, typically 12 hours, up to 12 hours a day. And, you know, they do a wonderful job. They play with them, they teach them, and they love them. And so we want to celebrate. It's a national week, and we're taking part in that, and we appreciate the opportunity to be here with you.
Would you like to introduce your colleagues?
Yes. So I'm going to just let them introduce themselves, where they're from.
Sure. I'm Heather Vanderhelm. I'm with the Boys and Girls Club of the Sioux Empire.
My name's Carla Johnson, and I'm with MB in Sioux Falls and Mitchell.
So, and Carla is really the driver of the Sioux Empire Child Care Alliance and applying for a grant and bringing us all together to elevate the profession of child care in Sioux Falls.
Okay, very good. Let's read the proclamation. Whereas the Sioux Empire Children Alliance and National Association for the Education of Young Children are celebrating the Week of the Young Child, April 16th to 20th, 2018. And whereas the purpose of the Week of the Young Child is to focus public attention on the needs of young children and their families and to recognize the early childhood programs and services that meet those needs. And whereas the Sioux Empire Child Care Alliance is working to promote and inspire high-quality early childhood experiences for our community's youngest citizens that can provide a foundation of learning and success for children in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and the surrounding communities. Whereas teachers, child care workers, and others who work with or on behalf of young children birth through age 8 who make a difference in the lives of young children in Sioux Falls deserve thanks and recognition. Whereas public policies that support early learning for our young children are crucial to young children's futures and to the prosperity of our society. Now, therefore, I, Rick Kiley, Chairman of the Sioux Falls City Council, on behalf of Mayor Mike Huther, do hereby proclaim April 16th through April 20th, 2018 as the Week of the Young Child in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and encourage all citizens to work to support and invest in early childhood education. The Week of the Young Child. In Sioux Falls, I urge all citizens to make a positive difference in a young child's life. May I have Michelle Markgraf please come forward? And her entourage. And Michelle, will you explain to the citizens why you are here this evening? And let's have everybody introduce themselves as well.
I am the Executive Director with the Compass Center here in Sioux Falls. We work with rape and domestic abuse victims, offering counseling services as well as advocacy to them. I'm here with a ton of community partners. What we want to really stress this month, as well as the entire year, is that rape is not something that we can only put onto the victim as controlling. It takes a community to stop a rape. And without our community partners, we wouldn't get anywhere near as close as we are with working with survivors. And we need the entire community to step up and support that movement to stop rape in this community. It happens too frequently, and we can make a difference. And I'll just have you guys quick introduce who you are.
Peter Shaw. I'm on the board of the Compass Center.
Amy Carter, Director with Children's Inn.
Jason Lemke, Development Director with the Compass Center.
Marcus Brandenburg, a Victim Advocate at the South Dakota International Guard.
Ryan Hansen, City of Sioux Falls Police Department.
Dan Thielen, Sioux Falls Police Department.
Scott Hildebrand, Sioux Falls Police Department. Sean Koistra, Sioux Falls Police Department.
And I'm Amanda Feldkamp, the President of the Board of the Compass Center.
Thank you, everybody, for being here this evening. And you're right, it does take a lot of us to make a difference. So yet another good cause. Let me read the proclamation. Whereas sexual violence is widespread and impacts every person in this community, creating the need for public awareness and prevention education. Whereas rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment harm our community, and statistics show 1 in 5 women and 1 in 67 men will be raped at some point in their lives. Whereas child sexual abuse prevention must be a priority to confront the reality that 1 in 6 boys and 1 in 4 girls will experience sexual assault before age 18. Whereas on campus, 1 in 5 women and 1 in 16 men are sexually assaulted during their time in college. Whereas sexual assault affects every person in Sioux Falls, either as a survivor of sexual assault or as a family member, significant other, friend, neighbor, or coworker. Whereas the citizens of Sioux Falls have the power to make a change in these statistics by using their voice to stop sexual violence before it happens and to promote safety, respect, and equality. Whereas individuals can embrace their voices to show their support for survivors, stand up to victim blaming, shut down rape jokes, correct harmful misconceptions, promote everyday consent, and practice healthy communication with kids. Whereas the voices of survivors offer us important insights into the personal pain and loss that victims endure and are voices that deserve our country's attention and respect. Whereas wearing a teal ribbon will represent support against sexual assault. Now, therefore, I, Council Chair Rick Kiley, on behalf of Mayor Mike Huther, do hereby proclaim April 2018 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in Sioux Falls. And everybody, thank you very much for being here, and thanks to everybody for your efforts. That was a wide-angle lens. So. Thank you very much. Okay, may we have an approval of our consent agenda. Councilor Erpenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to, before we approve the consent agenda, pull for conversation 2 items that are on the first page there, about the 8th item and about the 10th item from the Water Department, citywide water main replacement projects. I'd like to pull those and then talk about them on the main agenda.
Very good. We will talk about those later.
Move approval of the rest of the consent agenda.
Second, Erpenbach.
Okay, we have had a motion by Councilor Rolfing and a second by Councilor Erpenbach. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Okay, may we have an approval of our regular agenda or motion to approve?
So moved, Erickson.
Second, Rolfing.
Thank you, Council Chair Erickson and Councilor Rolfing. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Okay, this brings us to our public input portion of the program this evening. And the only thing that I ask is that you come forward and that you be respectful. So may we have the first individual, and welcome very much. State your name and proceed.
Hi there. My name's Amanda Feldkamp from Sioux Falls, South Dakota here. But I just wanted to come up and say tonight, we actually watch the council meetings about every Tuesday, and tonight's Wednesday. But just a little feedback from a 5-year-old. You know, we've been watching, and she said, make sure you say I'm 5.5. And I said, okay. And so she had said, do you have to be mad to go up there? And so I would just like to encourage, you know, all of the residents from Sioux Falls just to maybe lighten their tone a little bit, and hopefully the chair can as well, and some of the council members. And so I just wanted to bring a smile to the group tonight, and then also hopefully to a few extra citizens of Sioux Falls. And so thank you so much all for coming out and for taking time away from your family to serve Sioux Falls. So let's all work together to make Sioux Falls the best place we can. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Scott Erisman, Sioux Falls. I watching the election results yesterday, and I was surprised that in the Central District there's going to be a runoff, but there would have probably had to have been a runoff anyway, because no one in that race got a plurality. So even if we wouldn't have passed the rule of 50+1, there still would have had to have been a runoff. So it just shows that the rule didn't really need to be changed. And I know I've said this before, I hope one of the first things on the agenda of the next council is to overturn that rule and get rid of it permanently, so we never have to use it. Second thing is there's been a lot of, as you can tell, as first person that came up and talked, there's been a lot of talk about public input. And the news picked up the story, and everyone's crazy that's coming up here and stuff. And, you know, and as I've pointed out to people, you know, it's a two-way street. There's a person who runs the meeting. They give you dirty looks. They huff and puff. They make smart aleck remarks when you walk off. They speak out of turn when the rest of the council can't speak. Like I said, it's a two-way street. It's not just us. It's the person running the meeting. And hopefully that will all change. I'm going to keep a positive attitude with the next mayor and next council that comes in. And we're going to have a discussion with them before anything starts about how we're going to do this. And hopefully the two-way street will be clear. But that wasn't the big news story of last Tuesday, the public input. That was the one everyone latched onto because it was at the beginning of the meeting. We got to go all the way to the end of the meeting, item 77, in which it seemed that this council wants to tell us about our decorum as public inputters and how we treat them and how we talk up here and how we do things and how we're mean and mad and everything else. But it seemed that 6 of the council decided in some kind of concerted effort, either through email or phone or face-to-face conversation, to gang up on a fellow councilor. It was not real good decorum at all. It was horrible. Simply was asking for information and didn't get it. So she decided, and another counselor, the best way to do that is to demand it. And how you do that is you do a resolution and you say, if you're not going to give me the information nicely, we have another way of getting around it. I have suggested that when the new council comes in, that they don't even have a discussion about this. They make it real simple. You pass some policies, you put some ordinances in place that say the administration will share information with you. Not maybe, not when they think they can, not when the city attorney says they can, will share information with you. Will. And then that'll affect all future mayors, all future councils. You take care of it right off the bat. You don't have these fighting. You don't have this discussion about, you know, settlements and what's right and Supreme Court cases and everything else. The council will just put it in policy. We get the information. We need to see it, whether that's an executive session or if that's out in the open, we get to see the information. It would save a lot of time. And on top of that, it saves taxpayers a lot of money. I can't even fathom the amount of money the city has probably spent on lawsuits and attorneys trying to keep things secret. It's just costing us way too much money. Open government is way cheaper and will always be way cheaper than keeping things closed. So that's my suggestions moving forward. And hopefully after May 15th, we'll get to see some of this stuff moving. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Greetings. I'm David Zokaitis, and there's been some talk lately about, you know, the Icon Lounge and noise in town. And I figure if we're going to talk about noise, we should talk about the biggest source of noise that I'm aware of. So, and how to make it go away. Now, in my experience, train horns are just obnoxious. That's the only word for it, obnoxious. I think it's the worst noise source in the whole city. According to the Federal Railroad Administration, train horns need to be at least 96 decibels, max of 110. Really, really loud. And if you go and read city ordinances, the residential nighttime limit is 55 decibels. So that's a factor of 100,000. I think that's a little much. Kind of disturbing. All right, so now if you look at the history of train horns, it made a whole lot of sense when they first came out, and trains and train horns. You needed to get cattle out of the way. The buffalo herds, you know, you don't want to run them over, so. And there were problems with pedestrians and horses and vehicular traffic, and big loud horn, get everybody out of the way. But it's kind of a historical precursor to crossing signals and what was relatively modern technology. I personally think that train horns are not at all helpful in a city. So, if you're driving along somewhere, a train horn goes off, oh, there's a train somewhere within the nearest mile. Not helpful information. Crossing signals are just so much more valuable. All it does is just make a bunch of noise, add stress to your life, and make you crabby for a few minutes. I don't see any value to them, really. Now, if you're doing a little bit more research, you can discover that there is such a thing as a no horn zone or a quiet zone. And there's where I found out about it. And there's some federal guidelines on the whole deal. Basically, what you need to do is to put flashing lights and gates at each public crossing. I think we have a lot of these. And then if you go through some rigmarole, you can get the trains to be quiet when they go through your area. And that would make everybody a whole lot happier. So my recommendation is that we go through this rigmarole and put up these stop signs, or these gates and these lights, and gradually include all the Sioux Falls and make everybody quieter and happier. Fewer headaches. I think it would be really nice. And as always, I like to end with a nice little landscape, and we should try to enjoy nature. Now, I usually take a little photograph with my phone, but I was kind of short with my telephone, so my daughter is an artist, and this is her handiwork. And with that, I bid us all a good evening.
Thank you, David. Is there anybody else that would like to present to the council this evening? Welcome.
Welcome. My name's Catherine Riffle. I've been here before. I've probably got it under your skin a little bit once in a while. But I would like to report that I went to a county meeting yesterday, and I was told that a homeless emergency shelter is in place, and we will be getting it squared away, and that they will be contacting me to discuss it more. I don't have to go back to the county meetings, and I think that having our input here for the community is a good thing. I would like to see it extended maybe to about 8 minutes instead of 5. I would like it to be more than, just cut off and ignored by, for the public. We need this. Yeah, people come in with attitudes. I'm a good one. But I put a lot of hours on the streets and all. As you've been giving these notices and commemorations to the groups here that have been coming before you, I've had the pleasure to have started those groups. And I'm really pleased at my work. I'm pleased at what you have done for the homeless and for those on the streets. I know the mayor is leaving. Please tell him I said thank you. I don't know how you did it right before changing guards, so to say, but you came through with it. Should anything fall through, I would have to come back to fight for the people and their plight. I would like to see the Bishop Dudley House being cleaned up on the inside out. It needs to be gutted out a little bit. Salvation Army needs a little bit of revamping. Other than that, I think that if our community and our people work together, we can clean our streets up as far as others have labeled it. I think that everybody deserves a fair chance. If they have problems, let's help take care of them. We want to take care of the kids and the teenagers and against sex abuse and criminals and healings and alcohol. Then let's take care of those on the streets. And our veterans, we need help a little bit more for those. And the Native people down there, especially the young ones coming in. We're taking the guns off the streets, but they're carrying other weapons. So I appreciate everything you've done. I come and stand in front of you with a smile. I thank you, and thank you, and I thank you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you. And those that aren't here, thank you. The people, thank you. And a couple of the women even started crying, so I appreciate it.
And Catherine, I thank you.
Oh, I'll take that plaque for a hero now.
Hello, you people, and you in the middle, not the mayor. I am Stephen Ciano. Once again, aside from the other stuff that I have presented before about myself as a victim of discrimination, although I will begin once again with my dissatisfaction with your Human Relations Office, as I have put in a report to the police, and in 2 weeks have not gotten a response back. And they are under Colleen Moran, who then shows up with her pretty face talking about one little thing that she's done, when she could certainly refer what she knows about my situation to higher-ups, maybe state attorney, U.S. attorney, whatever, about what the VA and others locally have been doing to cause me harm and threaten my life. I've presented that. It is criminal. Now, I say also that what this body has done in inaction toward our democratic process and public sentiment. Sometimes on the radio, I heard after last session where there was a blow up in response to the mayor's cutting off a city councilor for her objection to his cutting off a speaker, I believe it was. This is certainly a lack of decorum. I echo this on the part of both sides. Now, I think you would all agree I have never lost my cool, my decorum, and I have testified before legislative committees in the past in other states. And this is where I get into about the child abuse stuff. I have protected, I consider myself a social scientist and philosopher, singer-songwriter on a mission to restore the proper relationships between people in society. I have, in such vein, tried to protect children from abuse. And to do so, I have spoken out against a system that covers it up under pretense of protection. And this is much to be looked at. It needs to be opened up. I previously quoted former, now judge, but former Cook County Public Guardian Patrick T. Murphy as saying the confidentiality that's supposed to protect children actually harms them. The same thing applies to various aspects of our governmental system. We need to have it open. I mentioned last time, consent to govern must be informed. So there's a lot of dissatisfaction, and I am hopeful. I also say that I urge you people to do everything in your power to stand up for what is right and object to things that have been done in secret, often against the welfare of the public, and to review all your actions and rescind whatever actions you have taken that have not been in the public interest, because you can be held accountable no matter what your city attorneys tell you. Perhaps do the research yourself, check the law. I can read law, you can read law. You're all intelligent people, and I hope you'll do what is best for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Yes, please come forward. Welcome.
Good evening, distinguished city council members and fellow citizens. I'm humbled to be here today to represent the many Lyft drivers in the Sioux Falls area. First of all, we applaud the support from our city.
Identify yourself, please. Your name.
I'm sorry, my name is Tom Inez. I'm from Harrisburg.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, we applaud the support from our city government. Efforts from the city leadership, specifically city council members Greg and Christine, have been instrumental in not only bringing the transportation network company to the Sioux Falls area, but also changing the landscape of the public transportation within our community. We know that paving the way for Lyft to enter the market has been one that has had some criticism. But on behalf of the drivers and the passengers in the Lyft community, we thank you for your open-minded conversations and resilience in policy and ordinance review, even if you did not support the concept or the implementation at every step of the way. With any large-scale business concept, especially something as new as a transportation network company into the local transportation market, there has been and will continue to be some growing pains. As an example, Christine and Greg have been helpful in implementing a system for a safe, responsive approach for our customers with increased vehicle congestion at the Denny Sanford Premier Center. In another example, the airport executive director has also been helpful with the issues at the airport in providing a quality service to our customers by instituting rules and regulations, as well as a vehicle queue that has made a smoother operation within the airport. We've been proactively looking at other concerns that we have had regarding the rideshare city ordinances. We hope that if and when any proposed ordinances changes are suggested for amendment, that you will all look closely to ensure that the proposed action does make sense. We realize there will soon be changes within our city government with the election of a new mayor and several new city council members. We hope to continue to increase our great working relationship as our city does transition. Our current government leaders have looked at the regulations regarding the commercial taxi companies to ensure a fair market is available for other methods of travel within a competitive market. These discussions have been in-depth and lengthy, and it directly impacts the quality of life of not only our customers, but also the drivers that provide services in both the TNC concept as well as the taxi industry. Proposals from our city councilors are forthcoming, and we welcome changes that benefit our drivers and our passengers. With all of the great things that the city has been doing, we are here today to address one concern that we currently have. In early January, we addressed an issue with members of our city council regarding the congestion downtown, specifically near 10th and Phillips, near Pave. Due to ongoing construction, there is very little, if any, available parking allowing for the safe loading and unloading of our customers. We are concerned for public safety when we have our passengers, often inebriated and intoxicated, attempting to cross streets, often walking several blocks to attempt to locate their driver. Often customers will walk out into traffic and attempt to get into our vehicles while we're in the middle of traffic, creating a traffic situation that we have no real solution to. Understanding that this problem has no real easy solution, every weekend we see an increase in vehicles that are blocking traffic to let passengers in and out of their vehicles due to no adequate parking availability or not having an loading or unloading zone available. If our drivers park several blocks away, our passengers are then seen jaywalking into traffic trying to get to their driver. 4 months have passed since this initial conversation, and although progress has happened and we are looking at suggestions presented by Lyft drivers and by city employees, no realistic option has been found. City staff have worked hard and very diligent on finding a solution that will help prevent the safety concerns without adding to the congestion of traffic. And with the new parking ramp breaking ground this summer just east of Pave, the parking situation will only get worse before it gets better. With the limited time I have here tonight, we cannot address each of the solutions, the pros and cons of the suggestions, or what actions have or have not been taken to alleviate these concerns. In fact, the time is limited to where we cannot address all of our concerns beyond the traffic congestion that we have. We do want to applaud the efforts that the city staff has taken along with the hard work our city leadership has taken. However, we are asking for your consideration making this a priority for our city. We ask assistance from the city leaders ensuring that the safety of our customers, your citizens, is held to a higher standard. Finding a parking solution in Sioux Falls is a challenge. We know that parking is at a premium already, and that we know that this is a challenge. This challenge will only increase with the construction ongoing as they shut down a large parking area to build that parking ramp. But we are confident that the vision that our great city has is one that will help continue to build a strong relationship with Lyft, the drivers, and the passengers, as well as the city leadership. We ask for your continued support, and we are proud to be part of a growing community, a vibrant community, by helping lift Sioux Falls. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tom. Is there anybody else that would like to address their city council? Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll move on to the pulled consent agenda items, and Councilor Erpenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I just wanted to remind this group, it crossed my mind again today that when I was elected to the City Council 8 years ago, our ability to even see these items on a public agenda, we didn't have that ability. And so this ability to now pull these items and have that conversation about something is just, it's one of those pieces of transparency that has been just kind of, we've taken it for granted now, but 8 years ago it was a big fight to get these kinds of things listed so the public could see them in an easy manner. And so I'm grateful, again, for that relationship between this council and the administration to make this happen. Secondly, then, I have misspoken, and I have taken one of the items I took off the consent agenda is the incorrect number. And so I need advice about how I might go about switching this. I need to have items, one of them, the one that's correct is 22056, Water Department. The one that I then also need is 23001, but that technically has passed when the consent agenda passed. And then 22054 is the other one that we took off. And so can I switch those magically, or what would be the proper motion?
Well, fortunate
under our
for
rules?
us, we have Attorney
I know, right?
Brown
that's,
here.
That's
so.
why I'm grinning at him and begging with my smile, please help me.
I think what you need to do is make a motion to amend the agenda. Or you probably need to make a motion to reconsider the consent agenda. And then if that gets a second, make a motion to reconsider the consent agenda to remove the items that you wanted to remove and put the ones that you didn't back, I suppose. And then if that gets a second, that could be passed, and then we'll have the right items before the council, and then the other items could be voted on if they haven't already been approved.
Super, thank you. And that was what I was debating with, was between reconsider and rescind, and so I appreciate that advice. I would then, with hopefully some support from my colleagues, I would move to reconsider the consent agenda with the change that we would pull for conversation items under water reclamation 23001 and under water 22056. So reconsider. And we're going with, it's the 7th and 8th items on the list.
Second, Erickson.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call vote, or discussion first. Councilor Nicer.
Would the motion need to include putting back whatever was incorrectly
Are there going to be
pulled?
two separate reconsiderations? Was my question.
Why don't we just...
No, I would, if I could amend that motion, thank you, Councilor Neitzert, I would add back in that water item 22054 that we removed. I apologize.
Second.
That to be approved, yes.
Seems clean.
Yes.
Is that?
Oh my gosh. Denise, please help us.
Yes, whichever one.
Well, I think probably the best way to do is just make your motion to reconsider the two items you passed. Make a motion to, well, you could do it a couple different ways. I guess I don't know. the
Whatever
best
is
way to do it.
cleanest.
Thought here, you've been around.
Chair recognizes Jim David.
Just for an option here, maybe just reconsider the consent item that you just passed. That, if that is approved, then your consent agenda then is in front of you.
And then we can just vote on all
Then you can work
three.
from what you have, and so you kind of start over there. And then you can add it in and add, but you have to bring it forward. You have to have the motion to reconsider. So the person on the prevailing side, which is any one of you, can bring that motion forward, vote on it, and then you're reconsidering the full consent agenda.
So a substitute motion then to reconsider the entire consent agenda.
Second, Erickson.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
now we're
thank
starting
you.
over.
Yes. Now, I would like to pull from, excuse me, pull for conversation the 7th and 8th items on the list. They are Water Reclamation 23001 is the project number, and Water Department 22056 is the project number.
Okay, so the correct items have now been pulled. Could we have a motion to approve the other items?
I would move to approve the other items.
And second.
Okay, we've had the motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Okay, now we're ready to address.
Thank you.
And thank you for doing this on my night.
I apologize.
Quite all right.
And one of those nights when we have really very little to do, and so I
Absolutely.
just
We
had to
have
add some
nothing but
interest,
time.
right? And I have invited a citizen to help me explain this. These two items, this water reclamation item and this water item, neither one of these was the low bid in this process. And Mr. Dan Brentro, if you'd come up and help me explain this, but just to introduce Dan, they were both bid. The low bidder had some different issues that Mr. Brentro would like to have a conversation with us about, and then it will be my motion at the end of this conversation to just defer this for a week to allow Mr. Brentro and staff to deal with it. So, Dan, if you could just help us out.
Welcome. If you could identify yourself, please.
Sure. Thank you.
And proceed.
Dan Brentro, 1201 West Russell. Thank you, Ms. Erpenbach, and I apologize for making you the guinea pig for Robert's Rules tonight. As she mentioned, these two items, one is a sanitary sewer project and one is a water main project, valued at roughly $400,000 or $500,000 each. I'm approaching this both as a citizen and as their attorney. Premier Contracting was the low bidder on both of these items. Premier Contracting is owned by Scott Olson and his son. Scott Olson has been in the underground digging business since 1984, has extensive experience doing these types of projects, was quite surprised to receive a letter from the city on Friday at 5 p.m. saying that although he was the low bidder, his bids were being rejected because he's an unqualified or an unresponsible bidder. That left the weekend for us to scramble to figure out what to do. We scheduled a meeting with the city engineer's office yesterday, spent 2 hours with the city engineer and the city attorney attempting to explain why Premier Contracting is a responsible bidder, is capable of doing this work, has been doing this type of work, attempting to respond to all of the issues that they were raising as concerns. At the end of the meeting, offered that if anything else came up that gave them concern, to please contact us immediately. We would do our best, understanding that this meeting was coming up, to respond. In the time between the meeting at 3 o'clock yesterday and now, I have received 0 further requests for information other than getting a much longer letter saying that we are still a non-responsible bidder. This letter contains factual errors, misstatements of what Mr. Olson said at the meeting, and most concerningly, it doesn't contain a single piece of evidence from any city engineer on any project that Scott Olson has ever worked on. It has hearsay from the mayor of Dimmock. It has some other information that they gathered secondhand, but there is not a single city engineer that's weighed in on this. And so I understand the city may have discretion to refuse to work with Scott, but given the time constraints that the city was working under on this, given the ability for us to move this on to the next agenda for next week, and given the contents of that letter and our inability to respond to it because we received it at 4:45 today, we're asking simply that the city table this for 1 week, allow us to gather the information that we need, present that to you, either via the city engineer, the city attorney, or next week, bring in the city engineers that Scott has worked with for the last 30 years to vouch for his ability to do these jobs. As a citizen, I'll tell you that it made me sick to my stomach to see the bid difference between what the city is going to pay the second high bidder and what they would have paid Scott. The total is something like $130,000 of our taxpayer money because of, I think, misunderstandings or misinformation or a series of items that don't arise to the level of disqualifying someone as a bidder. That just doesn't sit right with me. And if the city is going to spend $130,000, let's do it at least in a way where we have time to think about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Councilor.
Mr. Chair, I did also give the heads up to Director Cotter in Public Works, and I believe Chad Heavey is here, and Director Cotter here is here as well. So if you can maybe help us walk through that, especially my biggest concern is that timeline that the bidders had, and so if we could just kind of clarify that just a little bit.
Certainly. Thank you for the heads up today, Councilor. Mark Cotter with the Office of Public Works. I just brought for you, if you're interested, the 2 projects. They're key critical projects for us for this summer. Just to give you a sense of, we often talk about the mill and overlay program that does about 250 blocks a year. So there's a series of contractors involved to make sure that all that work can get accomplished in the summer. Concrete is let separate, the utility repairs are let separate. That is one of the contracts here, which is the sanitary sewer repairs. There's an extensive amount of sanitary sewer repairs that need to be done in a timely fashion to ensure that that work of 250 blocks can take place. And in doing that timely and doing it quality is very important. The other project is a 3-block water main project over near Garfield and Oyate Community Center. It's in a neighborhood. It's a water project, so we always want to make sure that anyone that's working on our water system is very qualified, has a good track record of doing that work. And the City of Sioux Falls, as Mr. Brentrow said, we do have history with this contractor, the key person in the of Scott Olson. City of Sioux Falls, we documented that we've had a history of issues that date back to 2001. And then of recent, we do rely on our partners of other municipalities to see what effect they've had with contractors, because it's important to us to make sure that we are hiring the most responsible bidder. And so we've done that work. We've worked closely with Paul Bingford, and I think Paul would probably be best also to come up here and kind of walk you through some of those key items. But I wanted you to first know the importance of these projects. The Garfield project is a tight time constraint because it has to be done as soon as school is out and before school opens. And so it's imperative that that work gets done in that neighborhood before school opens. The other one, it's imperative that that work can get done in a timely fashion, meeting all the interim completion dates so we can get the extensive mill and overlay projects done. We don't take these decisions lightly. We bid probably 150 projects a year and go through a thoughtful process to make sure that who works in Sioux Falls is truly a responsive, responsible bidder. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to have Paul Bingford come up and just share his perspective as well. I understand it's your desire to defer this for a week. We would only ask for your reconsideration of that after Paul speaks.
Okay.
Paul Bingford, Assistant City Attorney and Public Works Legal Advisor. We would ask that you make a decision on items 22054 and 22056 tonight and award those projects to the second low bidder. I understand that...
Just one moment, please. I think we just cited different numbers now.
It's 23001 and 22056. That was the crazy that we were doing as you were running here from City Hall.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
23001 and 22056?
Yes.
Thank you.
Your partner just fessed up.
All right. This is a situation that the city doesn't take lightly in terms of rejecting the bid of the lowest bidder. It is the city awards the project to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. The city has a lot of professional engineers within the Public Works Department that give a great deal of consideration to these projects. For example, as Mr. Cotter indicated, approximately 125 to 150 projects a year. Last year, there were 3 projects that were not awarded to the lowest bidder. All 3 of those were the same contractor. This year, this would be the first one where the recommendation is to not go with the lowest bidder. I understand that the name of the contractor has come into this, but I'm going to just generally refer to it just so we're not over and over again referring to that contractor, because we're certainly, by this process, it is not our intent to disparage a contractor from getting other work or to preclude them from working in other locations. But the question is, what would another week accomplish? Even though this decision was made on Friday, once the bids are opened, the process begins to look into the background. Have we had history with them? Have other communities have history with them? The Public Works Department has spent countless hours over the last several weeks vetting this contractor, making a determination. I mean, does this council, and this is a question that I pose, does this council plan on having a 5, 6, 8 hour evidentiary hearing to determine whether or not it believes that the Public Works Department made the right decision? Some things that I would tell you, or some things that went into the decision on these projects, is that this is a company that bid the project that was formed in 2014. This is the person who formed this company in 2014 had a company before then. That's the company that had done work for the city of Sioux Falls. The contractor involved hasn't worked on city of Sioux Falls projects for approximately 10 years. But between 2001 and approximately 2008, the city of Sioux Falls did have projects with the prior company that this individual is associated with. On those projects, the 2001 project, there were substantial issues with subcontractors getting paid. This contractor, when we spoke to him, indicated that he thought there was a 60 or 70-day delay because of an illness of his bookkeeper at the time. But the reality is there are numerous letters in the file that go to this company indicating we need lien waivers. And for those of you who don't know, lien waivers are waivers from the subcontractors indicating they're getting paid. This was a 2001 project. There were several months that we requested lien waivers, did not receive them. And this went on so long that in 2005, Continental Casualty, the bond company for this contractor, actually contacted Shannon Verhey, who is still an engineer with the city of Sioux Falls, about a deposition because the bonding company had ended up paying two of the subcontractors and was attempting to get the money back and utilizing the city as a witness, and that's 4 years later, that at least two subcontractors the company was trying to get its money back on. Throughout these projects, there were issues of poor workmanship, failure to complete projects in a timely manner, and failure to pay subcontractors. This business ended up ceasing because they had so many judgments against them that they just quit doing their annual business reports with the Secretary of State's office. The business is no longer in effect. We still see there's a $45,000 judgment from 2010 that a local business has against the previous version of this company. And there are one-call violations where there's at least $11,000 in fines that were not paid because of work that was done in another city. And there were one-call violations, a $1,000 fine and two $5,000 fines. This company ended up ceasing to exist, and a new company was formed with the same individual, this one not having all of those debts that are associated with it. And that company was formed in 2014. So in terms of the company that was formed in 2014, it's the same contractor, but a different entity. The city of Sioux Falls has not worked with that entity, but we know the city of Bridgewater did. So have things changed? Because you can say, well, in 2001, maybe a contractor has figured it out. Maybe things have progressed for them. In 2017, this new version of the company did a work project in Bridgewater, South Dakota. According to this contractor, he got frustrated with the engineer who he felt was not competent in doing his job well, and the attorney for that city and others with the city, and he ended up walking away from the project because he felt the city's demands were unreasonable. According to the Bridgewater City Council meeting minutes, a month after that, in September, they terminated the contract because of what they considered a lack of responsiveness. So that's in 2017. The previous version of the company in 2008 was denied a low bid in Del Rapids, South Dakota, because the Del Rapids City Council had determined they were not a responsible bidder. And also one of the projects that this new version of the company gave us that said it was a successful project was a 2016 project in Dimmick, South Dakota. Dimmick has, I think, between 100 and 150 residents. And a lot of the project went well, but according to the mayor of Dimmick, they are still having problems because one of the subcontractors is indicating that they didn't get paid and are trying to get paid through the bond company. And so that's still going on 2 years after the fact. As Mr. Cotter indicated, one of these projects is in a school. There's a tight time frame from when school gets out to when school starts again to attempt to get this done. The other project has tight deadlines so that the mill and overlay program can go in. And I know that Mr. Brentro would refute all of the things that I'm indicating and indicate that his contractor is a great, responsible guy. But the point is, is the intent here to have an 8-hour discussion about whether or not the city made the right decision, or to trust the engineers who have worked on this project, who have contacted these other communities, and make a decision? The only thing that a week will do is delay the award of a bid. The city engineers have made a determination that they do not believe that this contractor is a responsible bidder. We believe there's substantial information out there to support that, despite the fact that, as Mr. Brento should do for his client, he would certainly argue vehemently that his client is responsible. But we'd ask you to make a decision tonight, because we don't think a week's going to make a decision. This isn't an evidentiary hearing that we think the city council wants to have and make a determination on. And there are other forums in court if the contractor believes that we have done anything illegal or improperly. The laws are substantially in favor of cities being able to determine whether or not a bidder is responsible. There's actually 4 things that the court looks at: whether the city has used favoritism, improvidence, extravagance, fraud, or corruption. Cities have broad discretion in determining who's a responsible bidder. If the contractor believes that the city has violated the law and done something that is improper under the law, they certainly have other avenues they can pursue this under. Thank you very much. Is there any other questions?
Thank you. I'm going to go back to Councilor Urbanbach.
Thank you, all of you, Director Cotter and Attorney Bangford. I appreciate it. Mr. Chair, I did pull these in just to have a conversation about them for the council to consider, and I appreciate the work that everyone has done, and I am going to leave it at that and not make a motion.
No motion. Would anybody, if we could have a motion, and then we can have further discussion.
I'll move approval on both of them.
Second, Selbrick.
Mr. Chair, I'd like just a brief opportunity to respond.
Just if Councilor Urbanbach would like to call you back.
Again,
it would be mine with the motion, wouldn't it?
It could be any of us.
Right. That's exactly right. I guess my concern is that we not air the dirty laundry of whatever. I would, though, in just out of courtesy, if the council agrees to allow him to just speak for a couple of minutes more.
Yes, proceed.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Improvidence is probably what's going on here, because we sat for 2 hours and talked about the bookkeeper, which is his wife, who was in the hospital for 6 weeks. Things got left behind in 2001. If that was an issue, why did the city rehire this same guy 5 years later and 7 years later? That one's a non-issue. The Bridgewater issue is not what they're saying it is. It was a water main project, $250,000 water main project, and at the end of it, there's a dispute about $6,000 worth of sidewalk. I've written a dozen or 24 pages of letters back and forth with the city attorney trying to resolve that. That doesn't make this man a non-responsible bidder, or at least it gives us the opportunity to respond. We did, and in the letter I received at 4:45 today, Bridgewater isn't mentioned, at least as far as that. This Dimmick thing is brand new, and it's also false. There is no bond claim with Dimmick. The project is done. And if the city moves forward on this with the second high bidder, it is doing so on false information without this contractor having an opportunity to respond, which is all we're asking to do. If it's that important, they could have mentioned it at the meeting yesterday and we could have responded. If it was that important, they could have called us today and we could have responded. We're asking simply for time to explain what this is, and you don't need an evidentiary hearing. If after all of this, the city attorney tells you, or the city engineer tells you next week that they talked to the city engineers on these projects who share their view, that's fine. But that hasn't been allowed to happen.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bangford, do you have anything else? I'm sorry, this is not opened up to public. David, thank you. Mr. Bangford, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Nothing in addition to what I've said.
Okay. We let's, before we get into discussion, could you repeat who, I believe we had a motion from Councilor Rolfing, and that was seconded by Councilor Selberg. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Neitzer.
I have a couple of questions. The first is, I understand timelines, but can somebody really answer, just for the sake of argument, is 1 week really fatal? I mean, if we were to wait 1 week just so we could get a little more information and feel okay about this?
Paul Bigford on behalf of the city. Is there anything fatal that happens in that 1 week? The answer is no, legally. The only thing we were trying to respond to is there's nothing fatal by waiting a week, but what's a week going to accomplish because of the amount of time that has gone into this determination already? They had a right to protest, which they exercised on Tuesday, and the city engineer spent 2 hours with this contractor and followed up after that meeting and still reached the same conclusion. So is there something fatal that happens in a delay? No. But is there anything to gain by a delay? No. That would be my answer.
Okay. May I continue with
yes,
one
you
other
may.
thing? Okay, so I feel a little behind the 8 ball because, well, let me just say this. If there's not that many non-responsible bids, it sounds like there isn't very many that are determined in a year, a small number. It might be a good idea going forward to proactively, when they happen. If it's going to be on consent, send a memo to the council and say, you have one coming, it's non-responsible, and this is why. Just so we know, because I just feel like I'm just this is coming at me now. I'm the sort of person that I just wrote down that I would like to be reading what are my powers as a city councilor to be making determinations about who's responsible and who's not, or if I'm supposed to be deferring to the administration on something like that, what I could even be considering, because I don't take a position on who's right or who's wrong here, but I don't know, and I wish I had more prep time. So that's why I'm, I could see waiting a week. But I mean, your case is reasonably compelling. But I think, what would be gained by waiting a week? I could have a better explanation of what we're talking about, frankly. So,
okay, Councilor Selberg.
Thank you. I don't disagree with Councilor Neitzer, but I guess what I heard a pretty thorough explanation. We've got a pretty lengthy track record, numerous incidents. I guess after what I've heard, especially going back to 2001 and everything in between, that I was satisfied with what I've been told, and I have faith in the explanation and those who made the decision. But I am glad you pulled it. I think it's a very good example for us to look at something like this, be aware for it is what it is. I certainly learned something, but I guess I'm going to lean to the effect that I've had a thorough explanation and I'm comfortable with it. So thank you.
Anybody else before I go back to Councilor Neitzer? Councilor Neitzer.
One other follow-up. If this were to pass, I mean, I assume that a contractor could go to circuit court and ask for possibly an injunction to be granted, and there's remedies in which they could exercise to stop an award.
Paul Bingford on behalf of the city, and I certainly don't tell Mr. Brentro what he should do or how he should proceed. I can tell you that the contractor who made the decision not to award 3 different projects to last year did attempt to get an injunction and was unsuccessful in doing so, but they did go to court, and that's what it certainly has been done in the past, I guess I can tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? And I believe that since I'm allowed to vote on these issues, I'm also allowed to speak, so if I may. I just would like to mention that we are looking out for the safety of the citizens of Sioux Falls, and we have to ensure that nothing but quality work is done by the individuals that are hired to perform that work. And having said that, Councilor Rolfing?
I'm torn here. I'm leaning on the side of giving them extra week so that some of the answers that, or we could get some of the answers that their attorney has asked for. I think it might be good to have those answered. For instance, the Dimmick and the Bridgewater, is it just a sidewalk and that kind of thing, and why hasn't it been taken care of? It seems like it's gone too long, and maybe whenever there's a little smoke, there's probably a little fire. I'd like to know what the fire is, and when the fire, if the fire is going pretty strong, then we'll make sure that we get started with our projects and get a contractor that wants. So I'm gonna lean in favor of 1 week and to ask you guys to answer some of the questions that their attorney gave to us in a little more either confidentially, if you think that's a good way to do it, in an email or in public. And so just wanted to mention that.
Okay, because we've had some back and forth with this, I just want to be very clear of what we're voting on right now. We are voting on the approval of these two items that are on our consent agenda. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing,
No.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
No.
Erickson,
No.
Erpenbach,
No.
Kylie,
No?
Neitzer.
No.
Okay, that measure fails 5-1.
So, Mr. Chair, is it appropriate at this time to then do my original motion of
Yes, it is.
deferring both of these items that we've been discussing to the meeting of April 17th?
And any further discussion? Oh, we need a second.
Second.
Is that, point of order, I'm sorry, if I could ask the attorney, is that the appropriate way that, I know that we are a little off of our normal track here. I don't know if we just didn't award the contract, or should we have made a substitute motion to say, wait a minute, we want to defer it instead of just killing it?
You should have made a substitute motion.
I'll make a motion to reconsider those two items.
Second, Erpenbach.
Sorry,
Very good.
I just,
Motion by Councilor Erickson and seconded by Councilor Erpenbach to reconsider. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Erickson,
yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Neitzer.
Yes.
Okay, that
Mr. Chair, I'll
passes
make a
7-0.
motion to delay items 23001, 22056 to the next city council meeting next Tuesday,
April 17th.
April 17th.
Second, Erpenbach.
Thank you very much. Further discussion, anybody? Roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes,
Neitzer.
Yes.
that passes 7-0. I think that's the first time we've had two reconsiderations within one agenda item. So, but we did get it right eventually, so good job. And most importantly, a very good discussion, I believe, too. So item number 8, please.
Report of the March 30, 2018 Notice of Transfer of Appropriations with Major Organizational Units.
Okay, being that we have no new business, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
So moved.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.